on Rad Season, I'm going to be talking to German surfer Leon Glatzer. We'll be chatting about his time growing up in Costa Rica and surfing the perfect point of Pavones and his recent qualification for the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Hope you guys enjoy. Leon, thanks for coming on the show, man. It's great to have you here. Congratulations on the recent qualification for the Olympic Games. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Yeah, well, thank you guys, first of all, for having me. And yeah, I'm feeling off the moon at the moment. You know, it's been almost 2 weeks after I qualified, and I'm here in France at the moment, but I'm feeling amazing. You know, every day I still wake up and I can't believe it. So I hope this feeling stays for a long time. But yeah, I'm feeling good.
Nice, man. And I'd love to kind of jump back into the Olympic journey, how it all started, and yeah, obviously like talk about the qualification. But if it's okay with you, like it'd be great to go back to the beginning and where it all started, because you were born over in Maui, is that right, in Hawaii?
Yeah, correct. It's actually a pretty crazy story. So my parents, both of my parents and my whole family is from Germany. They moved to Hawaii 3 years before I was born, and they were living there for some time. And yeah, then I was born in Maui, Hawaii. 2 years later, my mom decided to take a trip to Costa Rica, and she basically just fell in love with that place. And she told herself that's where she wants to spend the rest of her life, and that I grow up in that environment. And yeah, my mom used to be a model before, so she was always traveling the world and having like a crazy life, pretty much like I have. And she was just kind of over the big cities, and she just wanted to find a nice little place where she could learn surfing and also, you know, grow her garden and just be happy. And yeah, she found it. She found Costa Rica, and that's where it all kind of started. I started surfing at a very young age. She also started surfing, so we both kind of started at the same time. It was pretty funny. And yeah, slowly I had my first little board. It was like, I think a board that had no nose, was completely chopped off, and we found it on the beach and we fixed it. And that's where it all started in Pavones.
And when your mum decided to go to Costa Rica, was that kind of like primarily, I guess, for the lifestyle and to learn how to surf?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what she told me was that she was just like over all the, you know, she used to model, and she was just over like all the big cities and the photographers and everything. She had enough of it, and she didn't want to go back to Germany and live there. So her dream was to find a really quiet place in, yeah, wherever in the world. But she found Costa Rica, which I'm really happy she found that place, because it's awesome there. So yeah, and we've been living there since a very young age.
And where did you decide to go in Costa Rica? Were you looking at different places and different sort of coastal towns before Pavones, or did you kind of go, she found Pavones and she was like, okay, this is the spot?
Well, yeah, I was 2 years old, so I don't remember anything, right? But my mom first went to a beach called Nosara. It's in the north of Pavones. The north of Costa Rica, sorry. So basically you have Nosara, which is the very northern part of Costa Rica, and Pavones is the south. And she lived there for a couple months, and then she fell in love with my stepdad, and he took her to see Pavones, and then she was like, wow, okay, this is where I'm gonna stay. And she bought a property there, and they both started building a little house little by little. So that's where she ended up in the southern part of Costa Rica.
Nice, man. I was over there about 6 years ago. I was on my honeymoon, and we traveled through the whole of Central America. And yeah, I was lucky enough to get a swell down in Pavones. And yeah, that place is just heaven, man. I mean, when it's working and like when the point's on, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
How was it growing up there? I mean, so were you actually learned to surf in Pavones? And
yeah, I mean, growing up there, now looking back, it's amazing, you know, like you have so much freedom there. Since a very young age, I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5, and I could just walk around town with all my buddies, and my mom would just, when she didn't see me for a couple hours, she'd just come search for me, and she would know exactly where I was, or I was playing soccer, or in the water with my little buddies on the boogie boards. So there was definitely a lot of freedom, and yeah, it was basically like you're just living life at the moment, you know.
Yeah.
And also you have one of the most amazing waves right at your doorstep. So learning to surf was very easy. But when I turned 9 years old, my stepdad and my mom, they came to a decision where they wanted me to study, you know, to get into school, because in Pavones you only had public schools, and you know they're not that good for education. So we moved actually back to the city, to San Jose, is the capital of Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. And basically I was very bummed. You know, I remember I was so sad, like, why are we leaving? Like, you know, why are we leaving the beach? And yeah, so they decided for me to go to school, and then we would go to Pavones only for long vacations, or maybe a weekend here and there. But really, I think I would surf or spend time in the beach maybe 3 months or 4 months out of the year. That was it. That was
wow.
Like, you know. So, and then when I turned 13 going into 14, I'll never forget this day. My mom came into the school, and she was like, "Hey, Leon, grab your stuff. We're leaving to the beach." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, it's not even the weekend." It's like, no, we're moving to the beach. I'm over it. And I was like, all right. And the teacher was like, what's going on? What's going on? And she was like, just, Leon, leave your stuff there and get in the car. And I was like, all right, let's go, you know? And basically we walked to the parking lot, and it was true. Like, the whole car was completely packed. Like, there was no space for anything. Boards on top, pillows in the back, suitcases, everything. There's this little space for me. And my brother was 1 year old, and he was just in the car too, looking at me like he had no idea what was going on, obviously. And we made our way down to Pavones, and that's where it all really started. You know, I was so hungry to surf, because I remember in school I would always bring magazines of surfing, and I would read them, or have, you know, little clips on the computer. And yeah, that's when my surfing career really started, you know, and I was so hungry just to get it going.
And in San Jose, in the city, it's a couple of hours from any kind of decent surf, right? So like Jaco and like Hermosa. So it's not like you can kind of just go, like, you couldn't go during the week. You were locked into the city. Is that right?
Yeah, totally. And obviously, you know, let's say from San Jose to Jaco, before it was like a 2.5 hour drive because of the roads. Now there's a new road, which it takes only like hour and a half, but still, yeah. It was like you would go on the weekends, we always had stuff to do, or there was always events or birthday parties or whatever, you know. And it's like kind of like the city life. There was always an event on the weekend. So yeah, when we go on a weekend, it was very rare. It was, I don't know, not much, mostly on vacations.
Yeah. And you were going to a German school over in the city?
Yeah, I started going to a German school for 2 years, and then I went to an American school for the last couple of years.
Oh, cool, man. So were you then brought up speaking Spanish, because you're in Costa Rica, speaking English, and then speaking German? Were you speaking German at home, or? Yeah,
well, Spanish, basically, I never learned it in school. That comes more from the hoods, okay. With all the boys in town, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but English was I was primarily learning in English, and then German just came, you know, speaking with my mother or with my grandma, my grandpa. But I don't have the chance to speak it that much, because usually I'm always on the road with the QS guys, and we all speak English or Spanish. So yeah, when I get a chance to speak German, I definitely take it. But sometimes it's challenging, but it's okay. You know, a week or 2 weeks of babbling in German, it comes to me really fast.
Nice, man. So when you then decided to make that move down to Pavones with your mom, you were 13, and that whole sort of relief of being able to then get in the water every day and sort of be out on the surf, doing what you love. When did you start looking into like when did you get sponsored? How early did that begin?
Yeah. So when I started surfing there, obviously I would still do school. You know, I had a homeschool, 3 to 4 hours a day and an hour homework. But yeah, basically I was surfing without looking for any sponsors. Like at that time, I just wanted to surf, or I wasn't like, wow, it would be so cool to get sponsored. You know, I was just so in love with the sport and so passionate about it that I just wanted to spend hours and hours in the ocean. And my mom would get super mad because I wouldn't eat or drink water or anything. And usually after 2 weeks of surfing, I would get completely sick of dehydration or something. And one time, I don't know, I can't remember who it was, but somebody filmed me on a wave. It was like my first video clip that went online on YouTube, right? And I kind of did like a little air, then an air reverse, and then into a corrupt flip straight away. And my mom was there like cheering, like, woo, you know? And that video went on YouTube, and kind of like the word was getting around, you know, oh, look at this German surfer, look at this German surfer. He's the new Gabriel Medina, just doing airs or whatever they were saying. And then Thomas Lang, which used to be a really good German surfer. He was actually the first German surfer to be on Red Bull long time ago. And he put me in contact with Quirin, which is my team manager at the moment and has been my team manager since the age of 14. So that's where it all kind of started. And he came up to my mom and Thomas and was like, hey, I heard your kid is German, and I think I could work with him and get him some sponsors. And I was just like, what, sponsors? Like, really? Okay.
Did he go out to see you in Costa Rica? He went to visit you guys, or did he go and visit you guys over in Pavones? And
yeah, he came a couple of years later, I think 2 years later or something. But it happened, you know, through email and phone calls. And then he was like, hey, I got like a week later, 2 weeks later, it's like, I got 5 offers. He told my mom, I got 5 offers for your kid. And she's like, really? Like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, you know, there's Billabong, there's Quicksilver, Volcom. At that time, there was Nike 6.0. And, you know, they all kind of want to sponsor you or start something. And then basically he was like, choose one. And I was just like, no way, I can just choose one. And I was like freaking out. I couldn't believe it. And yeah, and we came to a final decision that Volcom would be the best fit for me because of the Volcom house they have in Hawaii. And at the moment they had a Volcom house in France. And I really loved the brand. You know, I was a big fan of Volcom since a little kid and still am. So yeah, that's where it all started.
And was that just then from that video? Was it just from that one video, or were you then doing more clips and kind of then like sending them off to all the different brands? And
yeah, it all started with that video, and then obviously, you know, I got a couple clips and send it to Quirin. Like after that, like straight away, we got a filmer. It's like, hey, film Leon. And then after that, also he contacted the German Surf Federation to go to the ISA Worlds, which was right around the corner after that video kind of got uploaded. It was a couple weeks later, and they're like, hey, look at this German surfer. Do you want to take him to the ISA Juniors? And they were like, what? Like, of course. And I was just suddenly, like a couple weeks later, I was going to Peru for my first ISA World Junior Championships. And I couldn't believe what was going on. Like, you know, I just want to surf. And it all happened so fast. And then slowly that's where it all kind of started. And I was already on the scene. And yeah, then spending time in France, and yeah, it escalated really fast after that video.
Wow, man. So that's like literally like sort of from that video then going out there, it was then a couple of weeks and then you're already off competing. Were you doing local competitions in Costa Rica as well, like before that all started?
Yeah, totally. I was doing, you know, the national contest. And since I basically, even when I was in the city, I went already and did national contests. I was obviously really bad. I couldn't surf. You know, I'd go like a month or 2 months without surfing. And then there was a national contest on the weekend and we would go straight there. And try to surf a heat. But I loved it. I just always loved it. I always checked when the dates were. I was like, Mom, please take me to this competition. And she's like, yeah, but you haven't practiced. And I was like, I don't care. And I remember I was always really embarrassed because I didn't know how to do a duck dive and everybody could. And I was like, oh, you think they're going to take points off if I can't do a duck dive? So
they'll be watching you paddling out going, like.
Yeah, and I'll just throw forward or do the turtle thing, But yeah, at the end, it was all good.
And where did the fascination with airs come from? Because you're sort of known as a bit of an aerial surfer. I mean, were there kind of surfers that you were looking up to back then in the media, and you're thinking, yeah, that's what you wanted to focus on?
Yeah, it was, I don't know, I always had this thrive just to be in the air. And I think all the videos that I watched mostly Taj Burrow or Jordy Smith, Dane Reynolds a lot. And basically like, the turns they always looked amazing. But when I saw an air, I was always freaking out, and I always wanted to learn how to do an air. So I remember like before my surfs or after my surfs or after school or whenever I had time, all I would do was watch videos basically over and over and over again. And there's this little thing, this little YouTube videos, it's called Trick Tips. It was a long time ago they did Trick Tips. I was 14. I don't think they do it anymore. And they would show you how to do an air reverse, or they would show you how to do a corrupt flip. So I'd watch Eric Geiselman do the corrupt flip, and I would just watch it over and over again. And basically all I had in my mind was airs. In Pavones, I would just like pump down the line for 500 or 700 meters just to do one air. And everybody's like, what are you doing? Like, you're wasting the whole wave. And I didn't care. I just wanted to fly, so it's always in my blood to do airs.
And I guess because obviously like with you living there, you're like, you're going to be able to surf the next day or the next week or whenever the next swell is. So it's not like you got that thing going on where, if I waste this wave, I may not get another one for a while. You could just try stuff, right?
Yeah. Basically, I mean, Pavones, the wave is so good. You can just literally you can pump down the line 400 meters. And if you don't make the air, you look back and the next set is coming and you go another 400 meters. And then, and back then, or even now, it's still the crowd. There's only crowd when there's swells. If there's no swells, which the wave is still really good, even if it's 4 to 6 foot, there won't be much crowd and it'll be like pumping for us. And I could just try airs all day long.
Was the first major trip that you did after you got picked up from Volcom, was that over to Peru? Was that when you went?
That was my first big trip. I went with my mom and my little brother, and it was to Peru for the juniors. Exactly. The team was already full because it was so early, and basically I don't know who they took out, but I came in like last minute, they're like, all right, we got this new guy on the team, and everybody looked at me. I was super young. I was the youngest, doing under 16 and under 18. So I took like 2 spots straight away. It was crazy. So yeah, it was amazing. Ezekiel Lau was there. Felipe Toledo won the under 16. So it was pretty crazy, that event. I remember I made, I think, a couple rounds, but didn't get far.
How was the experience of being over there?
I mean, looking back now, it was insane. It was like for the first time I felt like I don't know, like they took me, or they're taking my surfing seriously. I was like, whoa, like I didn't know I was that good, to go to such a big contest, because all I wanted to do was surf. I didn't care about contests. I didn't care about anything. It's just like, and there, and then, for the first time I watched the level of surfing that there was. I could watch it live, not only on videos, because obviously in Costa Rica, there are really good surfers, but to see the amount of people from different countries surf that good, for me in my eyes, was just like, whoa, what is this, and it kind of just opened my eyes, and I told myself, like, I want to be at that level, and I want to be like the big guys for sure. And that contest inspired me big times, definitely.
What happened afterwards? Like, did you then go back to Costa Rica? And
yeah, I went back to Costa Rica, and then after that, I had my first trip to France, to the Volcom house. So I got sponsored by Volcom, and then I got actually sponsored by Volcom after the ISA. Sorry, so afterwards I got sponsored. Yeah, it's been so long now. And yeah, and then I had my first trip to France, and I went to the Volcom house with all the Volcom guys, with the team riders, and I spent my first summer here. So it was really cool just hanging out with the boys and surfing the amazing beach breaks, and going also to the Pro Juniors. Was the first time I tapped into the European Pro Juniors. And yeah, everybody always looked at me like, oh, who's this kid? All he does is airs, and I couldn't make heats because I was only doing airs, but I wouldn't really land them because coming from Pavones, from such a perfect wave, where I only have one guy that's, that surfs good, which was Noah McGonigal. I grew up with him. And then coming into the Pro Juniors was like, wow, it was really difficult for me to surf beach breaks. Like, I had a really, really hard time. But yeah, France was the next stop, and then back home again for the remaining time, just surfing.
And when you were over in France, were you sort of working on then surfing different types of waves, surfing beach breaks where it's like not the most perfect conditions, and sort of almost like fine tuning your competition surfing? And
yeah, well, like, to be honest, I wasn't working on anything. I was still super young. I was 15 or 16, and I was just, I was kind of just like going with the flow. Like, it was all so crazy for me. Like I said, suddenly I'm going to France alone. My mom was crying, like, no, like, are you crazy? Like, you're gonna go alone? Like, you gotta take me with you. I was like, no, Mom, like, I'm going alone. Like, the whole team, Volcom team is there. I can't show up with my mom. So it was all very new to me. And basically from the age of 16 to the age of 19, 20, for 3-4 years, I wasn't working on anything. I was just surfing, and Volcom is a brand which is like that. They're very down to earth, and they just love having a good time, and searching for really epic waves, and go surf and just show who you are. So for the first time, when I was 19 or 20, that's when I was coaching with someone. I had my first coach ever. Before that, it was all me and videos. That's it.
Yeah. And where were you going to? Was it just to France every summer, or were you did you get a chance to go over to Hawaii and sort of do seasons over there when you're when you're a teenager?
With Volcom, I mean, primarily was always France, and then from France we would search for swells in Mundaka or go over to Portugal, but mostly around Europe, wherever the waves were the best. But mostly I spent 3 months just in France, just in Hossegor. That's where they kind of wanted me. And then for the winter, I would always go to, Volcom would fly me to Hawaii to spend 2 to 3 months there at the Volcom house. And that was insane. Like, for me, like, that was the raddest time ever to go to. When I had my first trip to Hawaii, I was completely freaking out. It was insane. I couldn't believe it.
How did you find it over there, surfing bigger waves, and sort of the differences between the beach breaks over in France and then Pavones and then being out over in Hawaii?
Yeah, so for the first time when I flew to Hawaii was in February, so it was already already had 2 months. The season has started for 2 months, and when I got the news that they were gonna fly me to Hawaii, I was just like, whoa, like, I am so not ready for it. I would watch the waves, the videos, and I was like, no, I cannot do that. Like, I was so scared, And then Thomas, which is a really good friend of mine, and almost like a father role, he was like, don't worry, we're gonna go to the Caribbean side of Costa Rica, which always starts in December, January. And we're going to train big waves because in the Caribbean side of Costa Rica, there's a wave called Puerto Viejo. I mean, it's a town, Puerto Viejo, and then there's Salsa Brava, there's Isla Ovita, and there's a couple waves where you can kind of, it's a similarity to pipeline, but obviously not pipeline, but it's definitely, you're tapping into the big waves, into the reefs, into like the gnarly open water. And it was
would
the
you go to
first
Bocas
time.
del Toro as well, or would you go over to Panama to Bocas? And
well, the first year that I went to Hawaii, before that for training for Hawaii, I didn't go to Bocas. I went the year after.
okay.
So the first time was just going to the Caribbean, and I only went for 2 weeks, like 2 weeks straight. And yeah, the first time was like super scary, and then slowly I was just starting to feel it out. Nice. I don't mean slowly, actually rapidly, because I only had 2 weeks before going to Hawaii. And then at least I had a little bit of experience. And then I got to Hawaii, and I remember getting into the Volcom house, leaving my stuff there. It was an afternoon. There was still like 3 hours of light, and straight away the Volcom guys was like, hey, like, get out there, get your board ready, waves are firing. I was like, okay, all right. So I'm gonna check the wave first, and I opened the door, and I literally saw this huge set. It was pumping pipeline, like as good as it gets. And I saw this huge set come in, and I literally saw this set and like closed the door, and I was like, oh my God. I was so scared. I was like, there's no way I can make it out there. And then the guy looked at me, and it was Kaimana. He's like, hey, get your board, get ready. And I was like, yeah, I just got off the plane. And he's like, get your stuff ready, wax the board, get out there. And I was like, okay. And then I thank God there's a channel, and I kind of like stayed in the channel for the afternoon and just kind of checked the wave out and grabbed the little one. But yeah, that was my first experience in Hawaii.
So basically you were kind of splitting your time between doing seasons in Hawaii, in France, back at home in Costa Rica. Where did the whole sort of the German surf team journey? So after the juniors, did it then kind of continue from there?
Yeah, I mean, I went to every ISA to the juniors until I was 18. Then I started doing I always went from the age of 16. I went to the ISA juniors and to the open one. So I was doing both of them already. Mm-hmm. But at that time, Olympics wasn't in the conversation, and the German team had no funding or no support for us. So we had to always pay everything ourselves. And basically we had a coach in there, but a surfer, a coach, like somebody that knew a little bit more.
Yeah.
And yeah, I always went to every ISA, to the under 16, to the open. And then when Olympics came in the conversation, that's where my life completely changed. It was a whole different life. Yeah.
When was that? Was that about 4 years ago, or?
Yeah, so that was when I was 19, turning 20, so 4 years ago exactly. And that was crazy. Like, I actually got injured before the funding started, and they were taking care of my injury. They were fully taking care of me. And then they're like, all right, we have a coach. We found a coach for you. Actually, we were in search of a coach, because now we had funding to get a coach, to get a sports psychologist, physiotherapy. We had like the structure that they formed for each athlete. So we had a budget for boards. We had a budget for coaching. We had a budget for traveling, for medical stuff. I mean, you name it, it was everything for Olympics, which was in 2020, well, now 2021. So they're like, all right, we're in search of a coach. Who are we going to find who can start coaching with Leon? And actually, Quirin took a trip to South Africa, and he found Llewellyn Whitaker, which is at the moment my coach and the head coach of the national German team. And he's like, hey, I found this amazing guy. He's really good. He was on the top 100 of the QS, and he's a coach in South Africa. Your energies kind of meet. You should go see him. And I was like, all right, let's do it, And then after my injury, I got fully recovered, and I flew to South Africa to meet the coach Lou and to do 2QS with him, you know. And that's where we just really connected, and I spent almost 2.5 months in South Africa with him.
Nice. And was that then your sole focus? You were like, okay, you know, I'm gonna try and qualify when the games happens, and
Yeah,
oh,
I mean, basically, like, the funding we received from the Olympic Committee, from Germany and the government, was specifically to train to qualify to the Olympics. So basically, they would take QS as training. They didn't care if I would win a QS. They didn't care if I would make it on the WCT. They didn't care about any of that. But they would see it as training for Olympics. So their main priority, whatever we did, any if it was QS, if it was CT, whatever it had to do, it had to have a reason to qualify for the Olympics. So that was what's so crazy about it. And we didn't understand it at the beginning, but slowly with time, they're like, this is all for Olympics. You know, that's why we are getting this funding from the Olympic committee. And yeah, basically we started coaching, and yeah, he had no faith in me and my backside. It was super bad, you know. So we worked so much. My life completely changed from being the Volcom dude, free surfing, I always did contests, but I never took it seriously, like, ever. I mean, obviously I would take it seriously, but I never had someone by my side. I never had a coach. I never had guidance from any sort of assets or resources. It was just kind of like by myself doing a contest with the Volcom team and just having fun, you know. And then my focus, starting to work with Coach Lou, my focus just changed. You know, he basically changed my mentality, and we did a full reset and was like, all right, we're gonna qualify for Olympics. This is how contest works. This is what you need to do. And it took some time. It took a lot of work, definitely, to qualify for the Olympics.
and were you sort of working on everything from like physical preparation, time in the gym, mental sort of training as well? And was it the full package? You're kind of looking at everything?
Yeah, we worked on literally everything, you know, from gym training to discipline, to, you know, working on backside, working on your front side, working on carves, on turns, on small waves, bigger waves, testing equipment. We basically, German style, like, every little thing we could work on,
all the
we
details,
would do it.
right?
Like, all the details, even from wax to fins to you name it, you know. They wanted us to qualify for the Olympics. That was their main goal. Yeah. And there was a lot of work done, a lot of hard days, you know, a lot of days where I wanted to go home, or days where it was so hard to train, you know, like we've been training for a whole month, like, nonstop, but you get kind of tired, and they're like, no, you gotta keep working, you know, that's what we're here for. I also had a book where I would write all my goals. I would write what it takes to make it to the Olympics, what I have to do, and I would read that every night with my coach before going to bed, and also when I would wake up every morning. You know, we'd read the book, all the notes I had.
Wow.
If I would go to a contest, or if I would be in a hotel, we would always put notes up, you know, like kind of power notes on the walls. And that was, you know, the motivation, and also a reminder, why are you doing this and why it is so hard, you know? So it's like, that was always my motivation. Like, okay, that's why you're here. You're here to qualify for the Olympics. You're here to qualify for the Olympics. So yeah, there was a lot of work put in that many people didn't see, or you know, hasn't, but it was crazy.
And what was how are you feeling kind of going into El Salvador and ISA? I mean, did you feel like there was quite a lot of pressure on you, and, you know, quite a lot on your shoulders kind of going into the event?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There was El Salvador, the qualification was the most insane contest, emotional roller coaster. I've never experienced something like that. And talking to other athletes that were doing the contest as well, they said exactly the same thing. Like that was the most intense contest ever. You know, even for some CT guys that I talked to there, they're like, wow, it's a marathon, you know?
Yeah.
And going into the contest, I was actually really, really relaxed, way over too relaxed. You know, I was like, I've been training for this for 5 years. I have all my power notes. It's all gonna happen. Like I wasn't worrying. You're like, you know, that's why I'm here. I've been training for this moment. It's gonna go my way. There's nothing to be worried about. And I had my sports psychologist with me, which basically he saved me. He got me through the marathon, and I'll kick into that in a little bit. But he looked at me and he's like, Leon, you are very relaxed. And I was like, yeah, like I'm gonna qualify. It's all good. Like, don't worry, you know? And he's like, okay. So all good. Like the first day came, I didn't surf. I was in a later heat. So the next day came, the second day, and I had my first heat. And I was going to the heat super pumped, super relaxed, so much confidence in me. I was actually surprised, you know, because also in 2020, during the pandemic, I had so much time for myself to train, to process my goals, to be with my sports psychologist and the coach. And we had finally like time to focus on the event, you know. It wasn't going from one event straight into qualification or whatever it was. So the first heat started, and right when the horn went off, I entered into a panic attack. Like literally, I couldn't breathe. I was freaking out. And I was like, Leonardo Fioravanti was with me in that heat, and he looked at me. And I remember he gave me the eye, like, "Are you okay?" He didn't say it, but he looked at me, and I was just like, and I was like, "Oh my God, like, where's this coming from?" You know, like I couldn't breathe. I was stressing out. My muscles were like super tense, and I was the whole heat like trying to get air, you know. And I somehow I made the heat, and I got second. I walked out, and I went to my sports psychologist, literally almost crying. You know, I was like crying because I was so disappointed in myself. That why was I so stressed? Like, you know. And he looked at me and he's like, "Hey, reality hit. Now you're in the contest to qualify." And I was like, "Oh my God, like this is crazy." He's like, "Yeah." So basically all that stress and all that pressure, I could really push it away. I was really good at pushing it away, but it was always in my subconscious.
Yeah.
You know, so right when the horn started, when reality kicked in, it just all came into me like one blow. And after that, you know, with a sports psychologist, with Martin, we worked a lot, and yeah, we kind of got that stuff sorted. Yeah.
And then were you kind of working on it sort of heat on heat after that?
Yeah.
You were getting, and then just getting more relaxed, right? And kind of being in
Yeah.
the moment. And
Well, it's a 10-day event, because you arrive prior to the event, and then in total it's like a 10 days. 3 days before the event we arrive and kind of get sorted, and then the event. So heat by heat I was getting a lot more comfortable, you know, definitely. The coach, myself, and the sports psychologist, we were all learning heat by heat, you know. We're like just stuff. And basically every day I would wake up different, you know. Some days I was so excited to you know, to do my heels, like, oh, I want to get this heat going, I want to smash everyone, I'm ready, you know, I want to qualify. And then other days I would wake up super stressed, super nervous. Like that was most like actually the stress, except for that one heat, came towards the end of the contest when I was getting really close to the qualification. So my sports psychologist, we would have to adapt on how I was feeling, you know. So for that to happen, for him to be able to work, I would really have to trust him and, you know, tell him exactly what I was feeling. I cannot go to my coach and be like, "Hey Lou, I don't know what's going on, but I am so nervous. I don't know. I don't know if I can make the heat." He'll be like, "What the hell? Like, dude, get your stuff together, get forward." Like, crazy? What are you doing? You know, and obviously the sports psychologist, he reacts different. You know, he'll be like, hey, you know, we would go into my room, close the curtains, and just start breathing. Basically, we'd breathe and breathe and breathe. And the secret was to get your mind into a complete blank space. Like, there's no goals, there's no Olympics, there's no ISA surfing games, there's no pressure, there's no stress. Literally, like, go blank, like white walls. The secret is always white walls. You in a white room, nothing going on. And then we would breathe that in. We would breathe that energy. And I would get so much energy from that because I had nothing going in my mind or out. You know, it's just blank. And at the end, before my heat, you know, all he would say was, just let instincts take over. You know how to surf a contest. You've been training for 5 years. It's nothing new. Just go surf. And then obviously would make a game plan with the coach, and it all come together at the end.
And how was that feeling when Fernando, the president of ISA, when he told you the result and he told you that you were going to be going to the games? How was that?
Yeah, that was a crazy day leading into that day, the day before. So we knew that the next day was going to be the day to either qualify or not. You know, the decision was going to be that day. And prior, there were so many ways to qualify. Like, I was already into the rapid charge, and I was like, if this guy comes out and you go in, but this guy loses, you only have to make one heat. If not, you get best third. So there were so many scenarios where I would only make one heat, 2 or 3. And I was doing all the scenarios. And then I asked my team, I was like, guys, please help me out. I need to know what I have to do to qualify, you know? And they're like, no, like, just surf. And I was like, guys, I need to know if I need to make a heat, 2 heats, 3 heats, 4 heats, or all the way to the final, like, please. And they did not want to help me out. They're like, no, you just got to surf. Like, don't think about that. And then actually talked to one of my teammates, Marlon Lipkin. I was like, Marlon, come help me out. So we did the math, and then everyone kind of joined, you know, like, okay, so what happened? What's going to happen? And they're like, all right, if this guy loses, you make 1 heat, you're in. And I was like, okay, that's not too bad. Let's go, you know? So the next day came, and fast forwarding into the heat, I made that heat, and I was just freaking out. You know, it was such a hard heat. And I was like, oh my God, I think I'm in. You know, I had to make 1 heat. So then I come out the water, and everybody's like freaking out, like, yeah, Leon, you did it. I was like, am I in? And they're like, no, you have to make 1 more heat because this guy did it. And, you know, they're also you can qualify through 2019. But I was like, oh, okay. Oh, good. 1 more heat. And every heat was a final. You know, I felt I won like US's or something. It was crazy. So then I make that next heat, and I'm like, oh my God, I did it. You know, like, no way. And I come out, and everyone's freaking out, the team. And they're like, did I get it? Am I in? They're like, no, you have to make 1 more because of this and that. And I was like, no way. And I was so pissed because I know how hard it was to make those heats, you know? So I make the next heat, and Vasco Rivera comes up to me, and he's like, dude, you made it. Congratulations, you know? And I was like, oh, thank you. But it wasn't real. I was like, oh, yeah, probably have to do 1 more heat. So I come to the team. I walk out of the water, and everyone's crying, like, Leon, you're in the Olympics. And I was like, no. I was super pissed. I was happy I made the heat, but I was super pissed. I was like, no, probably it's 1 more heat. You guys are going to tell me that's another heat, or somebody's going to tell me it's 1 more heat. And I was super pissed. And then I was walking towards the beach marshal to give my rash guard. And then there was a Spanish team like cheering, like, you made it. And I was like, oh, thank you. But if it wasn't in a paper written, I didn't believe it anymore, you know? Yeah. So then I'm about to give my rash sheet, and I see Fernando walking up to me with his eyes wide open and his arms like this, you know? And I'm like, oh my God, I think it's real now, you know? And then my eyes started glowing, and he's like, Leon, he comes up to me, he's like, guess where you're going to be in 45 days? I was like, I don't know, but just say it, you know? And he's like, you're you're going to be in Tokyo. We're going to be eating sushi together. You're the first to qualify in El Salvador. You're an Olympian. Congratulations. And I looked at my team, and then I just broke down. I started crying. Like, I don't know. It's so much emotional, like laughing, crying. It was insane. That feeling, it was so surreal. Like, I couldn't believe it happened, after so much hard work, 4 years for this moment, all the work we put in, and it was the best feeling. It is the best feeling in the world for sure.
How are you feeling now that you've had a bit of time to let it sink in and now kind of preparing for going over there? How are you feeling?
Yeah, definitely. After El Salvador, they flew me straight into Germany because obviously the TV wanted an interview, then the magazines, the newspapers, the radios. It was insane. So right after the day I qualified, the next day I flew straight into Germany because they all wanted a part of it like straight away. Like we gotta get Leon over there now. And I spent 1 week in Germany, from city to city to city,
just doing press and going back to back with interviews and stuff, right?
At 12 at night, and then 7 in the morning the next day, I was in a hotel straight away, like the biggest newspaper, Frankfurt. I was like, and I had a whole schedule. Like, all right, Frankfurt magazine at 7, then this one at 10, the next one at 3, and it was crazy. It was nuts. And then suddenly, like, you finish the day, you're so tired. I was still super jet lagged, and of course, I had a crazy party with everyone in El Salvador when I qualified, right? So I was not feeling so good and jet lagged, and just like 1 week on the road. We'd go from Frankfurt to Berlin to Dusseldorf to Köln. I was like doing a whole trip with the train or with the car, whatever it was. So that was, I loved it. It was the first time I experienced that, but it was tiring, definitely. The last day, I was so happy it was over. We didn't have a single proper meal. Like, I didn't sit once at a restaurant. It was always like they were bringing me food, or we'd grab food really quick because we had to go into the next press conference or whatever it was. Yeah, and then I flew to France, and I literally, for 3 days, I just slept. Like, I was completely destroyed. I was super happy, of course, but yeah, I was really tired, definitely, from all the press conference and interviews, and now I'm slowly like recuperated, getting a lot better, and yeah, now the training starts, but I'm still super happy. I mean, I haven't been on such a high for so long. Usually, like, if I win a QS or something, like, you're stoked for 3 days, like, woo, but then you're on to the next one. Yeah. This qualification has been 2 weeks of me waking up and just going like, oh my God, I'm in the Olympics,
That's so good.
The high is definitely there, I'm still smiling from ear to ear.
And how are you feeling about competing over there and being in the Olympics?
Yeah, at the moment, I mean, I have no idea how it's going to be. I mean, I've only watched on the TV or past videos, but I'm really excited to see, because I've been following an Instagram. It's called Team Deutschland, which is the official Instagram of the Olympic athletes, or we call it Team Germany. And you see everyone, all the athletes preparing from so many different sports, and you kind of see what they're doing. Yeah. And it's so cool, and it looks so big, and I just can't believe I'm like part of this experience, So I remember seeing athletes that I saw a couple of years ago, like, whoa, this guy is amazing. And then I know in a week or two, I'm going to see him at the Olympics, so or be there with them and also competing. So it's crazy. I feel amazing for sure.
It's going to be an amazing experience, man. You just got to soak it all in and just try and enjoy it, and not put, obviously you're going to have pressure, but not put too much pressure on yourself, and just, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna be cool. And what's the best way for people to follow what you're up to and follow your journey?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm definitely like on Instagram. I'm trying to show as much as I can for, you know, for all my followers and all the people that support me. I just basically Instagram right now is at the moment, like all my stories, I try to show as much as I can, you know,
Yeah.
so they're also a part of it, and they see the experience, because I definitely didn't do this alone. You know, there was a lot of love and support behind me for this moment. So for me giving back, I try to for them to be part of it too. So it's the way.
Nice, man. Well, Leon, it's been amazing talking to you, dude. Really appreciate your time, and it's great to hear your journey coming from over in Costa Rica and then now being an Olympian, a soon-to-be Olympian for the German surf team. And yeah, we wish you all the best of luck over there, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye out. And yeah, hope it goes well.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thanks, man.